Hello everyone, and I've finally been able to get my hands on Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So as I play through the game here, I'm going to give commentary as best as I can, as it occurs to me. Now, obviously we're beginning in a very rocky cliff face, which pretty common terrain for Greece. And that's a very cool place to start your game. Battle of Thermopylae 480 BC, possibly one of the most well-known battles besides Marathon in Greek history. Now, if you've only ever seen the movie 300, this does not look like Leonidas to you, but Leonidas himself would have been around age 50, possibly even early 60s at the Battle of Thermopylae. He was king of the Spartans, actually one of two kings, which is sort of how they were able to send him to begin with. So there was still a king in Sparta at the time, so it wasn't like they were losing their entire monarchical structure. Now, which day of the battle is this? The Battle of Thermopylae was actually 3 days long. First one being initial clash with the Persians, second day being a much bloodier clash, and then during the night they were flanked, and then on day 3 they had their last stand.
Every breath that you have taken has led you to this moment.
Doing his best Gerard Butler impression.
Every drop of blood, sweat, and tear, all of it has led to where you stand right
now. It's interesting to know they're actually in very traditional hoplite armor. There's a big argument as to what the Spartans actually wore at Thermopylae, where they were using the more modern lenithrax, which is a light linen type of armor, or in this case, the heavy bronze of the hoplite, which was a little more common at earlier battles like Marathon.
For our sons.
Victor Davis Hanson, who's written extensively about the Greeks, actually agrees that they were probably dressed as more traditional, because after all, it's a very traditional society, the Spartans. And hitting the famous phalanx formation with a little bit of a 300 thrown in. You can always tell they're Spartans because of the lambda on the front of the shields. Now, I'm not sure about the black paint, though. Typically, when I think about it, it's just a bronze shield with a red chevron on the front, red lambda on the front. And here we go. First thing he does is throw the shield away. You know, this is something I've seen other people comment on, that, you know, if you're fighting in a phalanx, the unity, and honestly the reason that the Spartans were so successful at Thermopylae is they stayed in formation. Phalanx is just pretty much an unbroken wall of shields, and then you kind of poke spears out front. As dumb as that sounds, they're pretty much heavily armored individuals fighting very, very light infantry. So at Thermopylae, their main advantage was the fact that the Persians could hit them and it wouldn't go through the armor, versus if they hit the Persians, well, there's nothing to stop that armor. They're using light cloth armor and wicker shields, and so the long Spartan spear there just went right through them like a hot knife through butter. Which is exactly what I'm doing to these guys. It's just sort of Dynasty Warriors-esque at the moment. Combat feels very fluid, though, which is nice. Now, I do realize that this is not how a phalanx fights, but if this is the last day, I mean, you know, there's barely enough guys to hold together. At some point, the formation's going to break. There's no point in standing shoulder to shoulder with two other guys. So it's quite likely it did come down to a melee at the end. I mean, Herodotus actually says in his writings on the histories of Greece that, you know, when the spears broke, they drew swords. When the swords broke, they used their hands and their nails. When their nails are ripped out, they went down to bare hands there. So the Spartans literally did fight to the last man. Now, it's not just 300 Spartans, by the way, at the Battle of Thermopylae, if you're not aware of that. They were leading a Greek contingent of probably around 7,000 additional soldiers. And even on the last day, when everybody else had left and the Spartans decided to stay, they were not alone. There were 700 Thespians that stayed with them. Their own monument as well. It's a cool ability. Now, obviously, these are little special effect abilities here. My understanding is that the spear that he is carrying is a piece of Eden, my best guess, and so you get these crazy fun abilities. You know, a little AoE effect I just did there. Spartan kick. Also called the pancration kick. There actually is a known style of fighting coming from Greece from the era called pancration. It's sort of a mixture of boxing and wrestling. But that heavy front kick right there is pancration at its most basic. Also very devastating if you manage to land it on people. A little slow, but really powerful. Oof. I love that animation. They had that one in Origins, too. This appears to be like a power-up move, so you can go extra abilities here. Now, obviously, Persians look a little differently, a little stylized here. Some very big style hillmen, and then using their curved weapons, which probably wouldn't be accurate, period, much later. But they're just trying to make sure to show a difference stylistically between the two. I'm guessing this is a commander mini-boss battle. Oh, hell. And definitely a bit stylized as far as the Eastern look goes, with the additional thing coming out of the top of their head. It's like a turban wrapped around a helmet, which, you know, if it's a lighter helmet makes sense, but in this case would definitely just be a little bit of decoration. Although, interestingly, the horsehair crest on top of the Spartans there, pretty historical. There's also a lot of argument that, much like the Romans, if you were a commander, it would have been lateral, as you can imagine. Instead of going from front to back, it would have gone side to side to help show command. Also, the beards are period for Spartans as well, although my understanding is, based on the laws of Lycurgus, all the Spartans kind of live by the same rule set, just so you know, that they're not supposed to have a mustache. It was supposed to just be the lower beard, so kind of like the Amish. But for this face, I think we'll let him have that one, because it doesn't look very good on camera.
No match for a Spartan.
Yeah, no, let me make sure work with that guy. And this is Sparta. So I can only assume this is not day 3, because the Spartans won here. Yeah, in good shape for a late 50s, early 60s too. Definitely someone I wouldn't want to tangle with. That's something that people forget, you know, just because you're an old guy doesn't mean you're not capable of really rousing people.
We are betrayed, my king.
The goat path I was mentioning before. Now, obviously, in the movie 300 and in other adaptations, it's sometimes a Spartan or a Greek that betrays them, and I think it actually was a Greek here as well that they sold the information to the Persians, a little hill path going around the back of them. If you can imagine, it's not like you see in the films where it's like a little narrow channel. It's actually a cliff face that goes down to the edge of the water. Now, you saw the big cliffs earlier, but that wasn't quite accurate. The water would have come up much closer to the cliffs than they do today. I guess he didn't like his answer. But it wouldn't have been a 100-foot cliff drop right there at all.
It was a day the Persians will never forget.
He even kind of looks like Gerard Butler.
Tomorrow is a day the world will remember.
True statement there. And that's sort of part of Spartan mythology in general, this particular moment where, you know, they're creating history. You know, the whole idea behind the Battle of Thermopylae is it helps to enhance their prestige. I mean, 1 king and 300 guys gets traded for, you know, reinforcing the fact of just how big a badasses you are. You know, it establishes them as the supreme fighting force in Greece, so that, you know, when the battle comes, I believe later on the next year, which, you know, they're the leaders. Now, we saw this particular character in Assassin's Creed Origins last year. She is doing her own modern-day investigation. I'll admit that the modern sections of Assassin's Creed have not been keeping my attention as much. There's just not as much story going on here, so she assumingly wants to fight the assassins after the last episode where they sort of attacked her and killed some folks, but that is all happening off camera.
Up with the tech industry these days.
No,
I can
the truth.
crank up the simulation to maximum sensory synchronization if you're up for it.
Oof. Choosing your difficulty. I'm not sure if they had this in previous Assassin's Creed games. Standard RPG mechanics. Those familiar with RPG. Experts with RPG. Well, I played Witcher. I played Breath of the Wild. Played all the Fable games. Played a lot of RPGs, really. So... let's go hard.
I want to see everything this baby's got. Go big or go home. That's what I always say.
That is actually a saying my friends say.
I can always change the settings later. This bit will let me know how much information will be fed to you during your time in the
This is one of the new things for Odyssey, which is instead of having your traditional map markers, exploration mode. The idea is they kind of tell you the rough area something is, and it encourages you to go out and actually traverse the terrain. So instead of saying, here's the plot point, go to this marker 500 meters away, it's like, oh, it's roughly in the area of this tree, so you have to find the tree and then find the person. Which definitely encourages exploration, which sounds a lot of fun, so I go that route.
If this book is right, this spear, this story, it will change everything.
You're putting a lot of faith in a fairly unreliable source. Historian or not, this guy wrote about magical objects and the will of the gods.
He's not Homer. Herodotus was
Oh,
the first
Herodotus,
recorded
which
historian,
I
so
mentioned a
there's
minute
lot
ago.
more truth in that text than you think. I mean, what better way is
Fun fact about Herodotus, he mentioned, I believe it was the Scythians, and has the first recorded use of marijuana in a text. Apparently they would toss it in a fire and stand around it, and everybody would get giggly happy and have great big celebrations. Yep, ancient weed, because you can learn about anything from history.
You haven't got much to lose anyway. There's just one small problem.
What is it?
This manuscript is in rough condition, to say the least. The DNA found on the spear has identified two
Oh yeah, this is another
different
cool part. So you are allowed to actually pick between a male and a female in this game.
choice is yours.
I thought it came a little later, but you have Alexios and Cassandra. And I will admit to you that I think that this lady's voice acting a little better. I've listened to a couple of clips from her, and I'm like, man, she sounds pretty awesome. Let's go with her. Plus, I have a, you know,
All right, boss. We're finally good to go. 431
thing for
BCE,
strong
here
women.
we
Pretty
come.
awesome there. Gina Carano, super attractive to me.
Good luck in there. No pressure or anything, but we're all depending on you.
Abstergo isn't gonna win this time. If what the book says is true and we do actually find the artifact, the assassins will finally have a chance to rise again.
You can
Really?
do it.
Did they fall? I honestly have a tough time keeping up with what's going on in the modern part. I know that Desmond died at the end of 3, I think, and then since then it's just sort of been this weird background clash. You know, it's weird to say, but I really do think if they're going to continue that particular story, they really need to interweave it in it better, or maybe even do a standalone game that just covers that. But the irony being, I have no desire to play that whatsoever. I'm much more interested in this. Oh man, that is glorious. Look at those butt cheeks. And he's even dangling. Wow. Respect to them for not putting a fig leaf over it. Good night, that's gorgeous. I haven't ever managed to go to Greece. I've been to the Mediterranean, I've been around Italy, and even to Corsica, and this reminds me a lot of kind of Corsica, which makes sense. I mean, it's the Mediterranean, but it is on my list of places to go. You got wolves, you got elk. Well, in the US we call it elk. I guess if you're in Europe right now, it'd be the red deer. But same basic animal, that big whistling gal there. Oh man, that's gorgeous. And there is the character you will play as for the remaining adventure right there. Still using that same spear, looks like.
Hey, shitface! Get down here.
Oh, some serious thighs.
Tell your boss he can stick it.
That's for last week.
Malaka.
I love how they use the random Greek or ancient Greek words kind of thrown into their games. Same thing with the Italian from the Assassin's Creed 2 games. Especially obscenities makes a nice way to get away with that. Barry.
You should know by now. The Cyclops always
Some flourishy combat, but lots of fun.
If the Cyclops wants to
You know, it's a real shame. I've been told you can't use a shield in this game, and from what I've seen so far, that's true. But man, combat does feel good. I switched over to alternate controls. By the way, if you play this game, don't use the defaults where like the attacks are on the triggers. That's just terrible. Just switch over to alternate controls, and they're literally identical to Witcher 3. Y becomes heavy attack, X becomes light attack. I'm playing on a PC, but I actually use a controller. I find they much better for RPGs. Eagle, symbol of
Thanks for the warning.
Zeus there. One of the many animals he's turned into and then messed around with women in, which is a very odd thing to do, to constantly turn into animals and then go try and bugger people. But hey, you know what? Each their own, I suppose.
All taken care of now.
The Cyclops again, huh?
I like the Cyclops. I get the impression there's going to be a lot of references back to Greek mythology in this game, which is awesome. I studied that in middle school and elementary school and absolutely loved it. And it's one of those things that ironically isn't taught in schools much anymore. Icarus. I wonder if I assume Icarus is the Tale of Icarus, the guy who built the wings and flew too close to the sun. I wonder if in the original Greek it's Icaros instead of Icarus. Makes sense. Play on the word eagle.
I'll try to put in a good word for you.
Finally.
So, what are you doing here?
Choice. That's a new thing to this game. During conversations, you can choose what to say. You can be mean, you can be nice, but apparently your choices in dialogue affect how the game will turn out. So we'll be curious to see just how much that actually changes the game. And I assume this is our first mission here.
He says wine will make him rich.
So this is where that exploration mode comes in. So she has said it's at a vineyard, so I now have to find out where the vineyard is.
Yesterday, I think.
Yeah, it does slow down the gameplay, unfortunately, but for me, that's not a negative thing. It forces you to really stop and consider the world. And thus far, it's holding up pretty good. Jeez, her biceps are bigger than mine.
I don't know.
Yikes. I wonder if it's actually the same body model for the most part. It would make sense for animations and stuff like that, where the only thing that really changes is sort of the head. But if the arms and legs are almost identical between the male and female models. I suspect reviewing this game or talking to people about it might be a little difficult, because even the basic things like using which pronoun to use is going to become something of an issue. Where you say he or she did this in the game.
I'll go there, Marcos. You're coming.
Choices, which we were talking about before. So, they are permanent, and they do affect it.
Fun's over.
Let's just get out of here, come on. I tend to be a little nice in these games, because you never know when it's gonna... Good line. You never know when it's gonna come back to haunt you.
As soon as I'm dressed.
Oof. What a bad house. It's rather hovel, though. Click it. Oh, I hate when you have to hold A. What an annoyance. Unnecessary to do. It just slows you down. Quest items. That is useless. Why do I need to know that information? I like the tunics. It's that nice kind of faded colors. You know, basic leatherware, stuff like that. And thus far, the costuming's been on point. A little stylized, but not too bad considering. Some reused assets here from Origins with the straw roof. This is the map itself of the world. Jeez, so I'm starting here on this island, top left-hand corner. What is that relation to everything else in Greece? That is a big map. Spartan control, Athenian control. Now, it's the start of the Peloponnesian War in 430 BC. Now, if you're not aware, the Spartans, basically, Spartans and their allies went to war with Athens, and their allies and the entirety of Greece pretty much fought for several years. Now, in the end, the Spartans ended up winning, but they couldn't really hold control of Athens for very long. I think it was like 10 years. It actually came down to a siege of the city of Athens, I think. So, I'm not sure if that'll be in this game, where the Spartans end up surrounding Athens for a year. So it was a problem where the Athenians couldn't fight the Spartans on land because the Spartans would kick their butts. But conversely, the Spartans couldn't fight the Athenians at sea because, well, the Athenian navy was better. In the end, the Spartans ended up building a navy and recruiting allies who knew how to do it and beat the Athenians that way. But just because you're good at the military doesn't mean you're good at ruling, and it all kind of fell apart. Now, this is during the middle of the Greek Golden Age from 480 to about 420. So let's consider the Greek Golden Age, which is also the Athenian Golden Age. Let's loot this guy. Soft leather. This is a crafting game, so it's going to be a lot of animal murder, unfortunately, if you're not into that sort of thing. Which you shouldn't be. I mean, put like animal murder, I suppose. Random person picking through the hovels here. I guess this is not a good part of town. Jeez, that's a lot of damage. Hello? No random guys.
That's what I get for sparing you?
Are you serious? Okay, well apparently that choice a minute ago had immediate consequences. And the answer is, in this game, don't be nice. It's like Witcher 3. They're not really doubling down on the open world full of vile characters in that case. So be nice and prepare to pay the consequences for it, buddy. I'm gonna mess you up so bad right now. That's right, stupid archers. Fun to play against. Lots of spinning style combat. It's not really based on anything. It's just a lot of kind of flailing around, but it looks very pretty. The idea of two-sword combat has never really been a thing in European martial arts. I'm aware that in Chinese and Japanese it is. Well, just Chinese actually. Japanese is more kendo style. But clearly they're drawing inspirations on how to use two weapons here.
This is the vineyard. Straight ahead.
There you go. You got it again. You can call your bird, just like in the last game. Use him to sight up what's happening and find where you need to go. There we go.
Let's see what you've gotten yourself into this time.
It's actually something they adapted from the Far Cry series and brought back into Assassin's Creed, which, it's funny because the two games do play very similarly in a sort of way. They're made by the same company, so it's not really surprising, I suppose. Hey, that Greek floppy hat, which I don't know the name on, but that's a very Greek look right there. Hot environment with that big straw hat to keep the heat and sun off of you, but enough ventilation to go forward. Light tunics. I had someone comment on my channel recently that these Greeks look too dark-skinned. And I would counter that with every farmer I have ever seen in a picture from the 1940s going backwards, I live in the southern United States, is just so dark. I mean, it's weird to say, but we're inside offices all day or indoors. We're not constantly exposed to the harsh weather. I mean, I had a grandparent whose skin was the color of tanned leather. Just always out working in the fields. So a life of hard toil will definitely darken you up a little bit as far as the melanin count is concerned.
I think they mean you harm.
I wish you would have told me that before they hit me. But that's beside the point. You bought a vineyard, Marcos? A vineyard?
Why not? I like
wine, which made the entire
wine.
Greek economy go
Everybody
round.
likes wine. Everybody buys wine. Why not from me?
I really love his tunic right there. So that's probably dyed, let's see, that's sort of a rust color, so that would probably actually be rust or iron oxide that was used to make the color. Now the other shoulder tunic there with a little bit of gold threading that actually does shimmer and shine, which is super cool.
You know me better than to think I don't
Interestingly,
have
the
a
least
plan.
historic thing there would
Marcos
probably be
always has a
her
plan.
blackened tunic.
All right.
I mean, you could use
do you have the
ash or
money you owe
soot,
me?
but it wouldn't be quite that
Do I
dark.
have the
Well, and
money I owe
actually,
you?
having said that,
Of
even that's not
course,
that
of
dark.
course. Well, no, not
So
at the
interesting.
moment.
Then get.
That's one of those things you don't really think about is how world should look as far as colors go, and what dyes are available. Especially the really bright and vibrant dyes are going to be a lot harder to get during this period because you first have to bleach the cloth and then dye it. So, easiest way to bleach cloth, by the way, urine. So early morning urine. You're going to collect that from people and use it to bleach the cloth. So as you can imagine, that was not it's a particularly fragrant job. I'll put it that way.
Please. Again. Why do you keep lending him
And so
money?
far, I'm getting a very,
He's a loyal friend.
either Hercules
I
the
don't want
Legendary
his
Journeys or
family
like
to
a
starve.
Xena Warrior
You're a
Princess
good
vibe from this
friend.
game, which isn't a bad thing. I mean,
Bad with money.
I enjoyed both those shows growing up as a kid.
Where
Made me
can
want
I
to go
find
visit New
Greece?
Zealand, which
In a
this is
shop
clearly
in
not set in New
Sami,
Zealand. This is
overlooking
definitely
the
Greece.
docks. You know this, Cassandra.
Will he be there?
You mistake me for the Pythia. I couldn't possibly know.
Another Greek
How do
mythology
you want to
reference. Man,
handle
these are
this one?
really
Not like
sprinkled
you handled
throughout, aren't
that
they?
olive oil business. That was too much.
Olive oil and wine.
I got the money.
And now we'll never get any more from him. If you kill them all, nobody benefits. Threatening them and maybe more.
Classic problem in a
Breaking
video
things,
game.
Certainly. Steal the money if you have.
Yeah, that's the one
But
thing
don't
about these
rob me
Assassin's
of my
Creed games
customers.
especially. I mean,
Unless
you
we can't
just...
avoid it.
You're a
These
mass
things
murdering
happen.
psychopath, really. I mean, it's difficult to count how many
better
people
have my
you
money,
put into the
Marcos.
ground over the course of a
Hate
game
to
like
have to
this. I
sell
mean,
our vineyard.
yeah, there are plagues that
Of
don't
course you
actually
will.
murder as
Oh,
many people
after
as the
there's
player
another
does
matter I want to
in
discuss.
these games.
Fine, but I'm taking a horse. It's too hot and too long a walk to go on foot.
But
Think of it as interest, Marcos.
Yeah, I've heard that this world is so big that
benefits.
basically you
Of
have
course,
to
my
use a
friend.
horse or a
You
boat to
shall
get
have
around
your
on it, because
pick.
otherwise you'll just be walking forever and ever. Most recent count, I think, read online that it takes 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours, to walk across this world. Ooh, 3 horses to choose from.
Tell me about this one.
Get a gray one on the
Stirrups.
left.
You have an eye for sturdy stock, my friend. That horse can cling to mountain passes like a goat.
The one in the middle. Tell me about it.
Ah, you have picked a beauty, my friend. That horse is from
Thessalonia.
Thessalonia. Bred for its courage.
And the one on the right.
I like the look of the one on the right.
Ah, the Macedonians.
Macedonians. That's Alexander the Great. So in about 150 years' time, this particular breed of horse will be very useful in battle. I like dappled gray. I'm going to go with the dappled gray as far as a style of horse goes. I've always been a fan of the Percheron battle chargers from the medieval era. So this is pretty close. Closest I'll ever get anyway.
That one on the right.
Fine choice. But this particular breed has a few quirks that you might not be aware of. I wouldn't want you to take an unworthy horse.
Okay, that's a little weird. Okay, guess we'll have another look then.
Maybe I should have another look.
Choose wisely.
Okay. Thought I chose wisely the first time.
That one?
Alright. Not really much to go on there.
Maybe I should have another look.
Choose wisely.
Are you serious? Is this gonna loop that dialogue?
I'll take the
Horse in the middle then.
That one?
Okay, so is the horse on the right the only one that gets a unique dialogue choice? What the heck is wrong with that horse? Oh my god, it's like, I think this guy actually might be a used horse salesman. Like, this sounds like the kind of guy that's gonna, like, try and, you know, yeah, please, I want this horse.
Are you sure? Because
Oh my goodness, dude, I'm not gonna negotiate with you about horses anymore. Man, they did a good job making this guy feel really skeezy.
He's never let me down.
He's named Phobos, so if you're not aware, Phobos means fear in the Greek language. So considering he's a courageous warrior horse, naming him Phobos is a little bit concerning.
Don't fret.
Not now, you fool. Phoebe's been taken. By who? Thugs of the Cyclops. Who else? Snatched her right off the main road.
Cyclops.
Tell me where they went. In the direction of Itimena Beach.
The beach? Can she swim?
I'll get her.
Yes.
Classic,
go.
introduce a character,
But don't
get him
forget
kidnapped,
about
now let's go rescue him.
Cassandra.
Make you care about him just enough to want to actually be involved.
Off we go now.
Oh wow, this is really easy fluid horse combat. It's just the left stick. Speaking of horses, man, Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out at the end of the month. My understanding is the horse has to be groomed regularly and it poops and all that kind of fun stuff. I'm really hoping you don't have to do that in this game. Ah, side quests. How do I get off the horse? B, A, and nope. And where is the get off the horse button? There should be an easy button for this. Why can I not find it? Tap B again? Nope. Okay, well, okay, I can stand up and I'll parkour off of it. Alright, I gotta look up the actual controls in a minute. This is all from memory, I hadn't even checked anything, but it's close enough.
I angered them, I think. The gods.
It's possible. I hear they can be vengeful.
I used to worship Hermes at the Droverati cave. There are gods there too, you know.
Gods in a cave.
They grant wishes if you bring them tribute. So everyone makes an offering and asks for something in return.
Oh man, I love that outfit.
No wishes of
God, the
mine
costuming in this really is top notch.
I'm running out of money and tribute. I'm poor myself, you know. I did something wrong.
You know Hermes. He can be a trickster.
Oh, but there are many gods in this cave, all asking for different things. Go hear them yourself. You'll get my last tribute if you do.
For the side quests in this are very good. They're like again, he's saying Witcher 3, but you know, those are the best parts of the game. You keep going in and enjoying it, finding new exciting stories off to the side. Misthios. Greek word roughly meaning kind of mercenary or adventurer is my understanding. So if you can imagine, even though it's Athenians and Spartans fighting each other, both of them actually hired outside help to, you know, fight their battles. I mean, the Spartans themselves pretty much just had a core infantry, so they constantly had to hire, you know, mercenary cavalry or mercenary peltasts or things like that to sort of fill in the gaps in their lines. Because if you're in a warrior society where everyone wants to be a part of a phalanx, it's kind of hard to convince people to not be. There's no honor in it. And let's walk into this cave. Ooh, thanks to collect. Sucker for the shinies. That's one thing I really liked about the other game, is that the darkness was used really extensively in the tombs. It looked very cool. Let's go ahead and click it down to the recommended 10%. Maybe not that far to start with. Oh yeah, much better. Gives you where you actually need the torch to walk through an area. Also makes everything pop out a lot better as far as colors go. The way the torch dances on the walls here. You know, in a moment like this, with the fishtail braid on the side and all that, and the female lead, actually feels a lot like a Tomb Raider game, which fantastic franchise in and of itself. You know, it's really been a good couple years as far as historical gaming goes. I mean, sure, Tomb Raider isn't the best as far as history goes, but it at least tries. That sounds dumb to say, but making an effort goes a long way for me in a video game. Kingdom Come Deliverance last year, obviously, the new Tomb Raider game, this one. History's hot right now. You know, Outlaw King coming out in November. I hate to say I credit Game of Thrones with its resurgence, but it's definitely helped to encourage people to give history a look they might not have otherwise. Now, when it comes right down to it, I'm definitely one of the people that says that I'd rather people get at least a bad idea of history than no idea of history. Now, from my own personal opinion, a movie like 300, a game like this, it's not going to teach you everything as far as the Spartan lifestyle or the Greek history goes. But it's a good jumping in point, you know, it's something that can get people interested and hook them in to go further and deeper. I don't expect everybody to read Herodotus, but if you happen to like a game like this, hey, well then you might go check out a book or watch a history documentary or anything to kind of further your knowledge. There's just so much there, and it's so cool. Okay, and I want to sneak up on this guy, so let's do that. Couldn't find the sneak button, had to pause and look up what the button was. The answer is left shoulder. And A to assassinate. Jeez. Brutal. Loot. Oh man, that's one of the first things you're going to invest in. After you kill someone, just loots automatically. That's what's so fun about these games, when you really get into it. The sneaking around, I enjoy doing the same thing in Skyrim. It's something really satisfying when you get that perfect kill right off the bat. Some quick XP, loot, get some new stuff. Get some arrows, although I don't have a bow yet. So far, it plays a lot like Origins. I actually think it works a little smoother, personally. Definitely gorgeous, though, and I'm far more interested in the location. I think that was one of the biggest problems with Origins. Though Egypt is interesting, it's very monotonous in a weird sort of way. You know, it's just flat sands everywhere. You don't really feel the adventure of it. And I think that this is something Odyssey has done a pretty good job at capturing so far. You just feel like it's a big, big world. Got so much health I needed down the first hit. I'm gonna invest in additional ways to kill him. Oof. Wire right there. Completed. Don't have to kill that guy, but I want to kill that guy. Yeah, I want to kill that guy. Unfortunately, my playstyle for games like this does not really lend itself to playthrough videos, so I'll probably be few and far between on these, just because, well, I'd spend a lot of time hunting resources and kind of wandering around the world in the wilds, which can be fun for the first 5 minutes, but, you know, if you've done it for 3 or 4 hours when you're chasing an elk across the mountaintops, I realize that might be kind of boring to watch, so I'll definitely be swapping out. But later on, hopefully, I actually have a friend of mine coming over who just picked up this game as well, so we'll be doing a commentary on the game as we go. Her hand is actually warming itself on the fire. This is a really cool game so far, though, so if you haven't picked it up, man, it's solid so far. Hopefully you've enjoyed the first 30 minutes or so of Assassin's Creed. It is fun. It's fun, it's pretty, and I'm really curious to see how the world develops from there. So, you know, definitely stick around. We'll come back and record some more. Hopefully you enjoyed this, but I definitely wanted to show you at least what the beginning of the game looked like. Thanks for watching.